I completely changed my life in 1 year, and I truly think absolutely anyone can do that if they have the will and the desire to. One of my buddies always says, you can't change someone that doesn't want to change themselves. And that is so true. If you have a drug addict who does not think they have a problem doing cocaine, there is no way that you are going to be able to help them because they don't even address what they are doing as a problem. Same thing with alcohol or anything. If someone doesn't see what they are doing as wrong, then there is no way that they would even try and fix it. So the first step is actually wanting to change. In my senior year of high school or junior, I'd pretty much just drink and smoke every day, and I didn't even enjoy it. And I realized that I had to change because it was during COVID, everything shut down. I was thinking to myself, you know what? I've got to figure something out with my life. I'm going to just be a loser if I do not figure something out. So, from a year from that point, I was working probably 14, 15 hours a day, studying, reading books. Up until that point, I had never read a book in my entire life. And then I was reading a book every other week, and I was literally studying something I'd never done in my entire school career, studying for something on my free time instead of going to school for 14, 15 hours a day and loving every single second of it. It was so amazing. And then a few years from then, where I am today, I'm doing everything I could have ever have dreamed of. Literally, my life is better now than I could have dreamed of it being 3 or 4 years ago. So if I had to start over now, what I would do is first off, I would start with one thing that I was going to hyper obsess over. Let's say for me, it was macroeconomics, not because I loved macroeconomics. I thought it was interesting enough to start studying, but I thought that I would have a better idea of how I could make money in the future if I could figure that stuff out. So it was something for me, my selfish reason for wanting to figure out that macroeconomic stuff is because I thought that it would land me some sort of job working under someone, which would allow me to make a lot of money, which was my goal. And so I would have a very clear goal of what the end goal looked like. For me, the goal was just working hard enough to where someone successful could not deny me and they would eventually take me on as an apprentice. That was my hyper mission. It was very clear I was going to do anything to apprentice myself under some sort of successful business owner. That was my only goal. One mistake that I think a lot of people make is, oh, I realize I'm doing everything wrong. I need to change every single habit in my entire life right now. And if I don't do that, I'm going to fail. And you go from eating nothing but junk food to eating the most perfect diet. You go from never working out to working out 4 hours a day. You go from scrolling on your phone for 4 hours, playing a bunch of video games and doing all these things to just meditating and reading all day. And then a few weeks later, you're completely burned out and you just drivel down and end up doing the exact same thing. So I would just focus on one task with a clear goal. My goal was apprenticing myself. Before that, I was in incredibly good shape. So it's still working out, but not nearly as hard. I just dropped everything to focus on the one thing that I knew was going to impact my life the most. And at first, you have to force yourself. For the first 2 or 3 months, it was forcing myself against my will. I didn't want to do it most days, but I realized the importance. So many people say, oh, if you're burnt out, just take a break, go back to your old habits. That didn't work for me. I tried that with different times with so many different things and I kept on failing and I would just revert back to the mean. This one I just willed my way through. Even when I didn't want to do something, I would just go through the motions. Even if I didn't get any result, I realized me doing that would have a better impact over the long run. Sometimes forcing yourself to do something that you don't want has the best outcome. For example, sometimes you're really tired and you don't want to go to the gym or you don't want to go for a run. And then you go for a run and you get the best runner's high. You come back and you feel exhilarated and you could work for another 4 or 5 hours. Sometimes you just crash on your bed and that run sucked. But a lot of the times you actually feel better after doing the thing that you didn't want to do. And then eventually, after a period of time when it feels like you are forcing yourself to work, when you start to see results and progress starts to arise, which takes quite a bit of time when you have zero skills towards anything, it is one of the best feelings ever. And you start to love the process. I truly think you start to love the process of work when that is the only thing you are thinking of and doing all day, every day. That is what happened to me repetitively for different kinds of work. When that was all I was thinking about and I was forcing myself to love it, I started to love it. As crazy as that sounds, and you get frustrated on it. Like I used to play a lot of video games, and what video games did I end up loving the most? The ones that would make me the most frustrated, because the frustration of not, or of thinking that you should be better at what you were doing and not being that good, that actually drives enjoyment when you do succeed. It's similar to pickleball. It seems like the easiest sport ever, but there's an infinite difficulty curve that can be had, and you can always get better, and it always seems like an easy shot. But when you mess up, you're like, oh my God. And then it brings you back to the next one. You're like, I'm not going to do that again. And you could practice to get infinitely better, but the frustration is always there, regardless of when you mess up. During that time, that year-long process, I really wasn't talking to anybody. Very rarely was I communicating with any of the buddies that I would drink and smoke with, because I realized that I would just go and drink and smoke, and I'd turn down pretty much every single invite. And then eventually everyone stops texting you because you were doing something that a little bit crazy. And so what? I was willing to dedicate my life to this so I could figure it out. I know that's not realistic for everybody. And I'm not really speaking to everybody when I make these videos, because I'm a crazy person. I've done some insane things, but I'm sure that there's some other people who are willing to do even crazier things. The one tip that I really have is you really start to love what you do. At first, I did not give any shits about what I was doing. All I knew is that I had to figure it out, and I became obsessed with that. Figure this out so I could apprentice myself under someone. Then I started to love it. At first, I mildly enjoyed it, but it was confusing. I didn't understand any of it, and I was more frustrated than anything because I was never getting any sort of idea sparks. But now, every single day, I'm compounding to the point where my business is doing better. I'm having fantastic ideas every day. The nature of my work changed 100%, but that's usually what happens. It's just sticking to something and going with it. I changed my entire life in a year. Everything, the entire course of my life. I thought for sure I was going to be a firefighter or a police officer. It's like, oh, I don't really care about money. I'm fine with decent wages. And now I want to grow a massive business few years later, and I'm in the best situation I could have ever have dreamed of. And it's all because I just stuck to one thing and I dedicated every single hour to it. Anyway, goodbye.